Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 493, Reigning Over Prejudice, Part 3, How Faith, Obedience, and Virtue Empower You to Find and Navigate the Way of Escape. The podcast objectives are analyze how reverence increases your ability to navigate the way of escape, and review how faith, obedience, and virtue help you to navigate the way of escape. It doesn't get any bigger than this. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 358 of our exposition of lawlessness. In the most recent podcast, we began analyzing how the fear of Elohim completes the second half of the critical process of heart regulation, vis-a-vis the work that occurs within your heart. If you recall, we spend a great deal of time reviewing how obedience and faith regulate your heart by first regulating your mind. From there, virtue can continue the process of heart regulation by filling your heart with honesty, righteousness, and purity. This brings us to the fear of Elohim. And seeing as we have touched on the role of spiritual values in heart regulation, I want to now touch on reverence. Let's get started. Now, as you have learned, reverence is the focal degree of the fear of Elohim. And like spiritual values, the primary illustration of reverence is one of the most critical in your quest. Enter the eyes of your heart. Now, if you recall, we analyzed the eyes of your heart in End Times 478, Your Victory Over Irreverence, Part 1, which was posted on May 30th, 2025. In that podcast, you learned that reverence provides your heart with understanding and perspective. In this regard, reverence is like honesty, vis-a-vis honesty provides your heart with a conscience, a moral compass to guide you in the path of righteousness. In like manner, reverence provides your heart with perspective to help you understand the Father's will, which is to keep you in the path of righteousness. Now, if you recall, your conscience and perspective are default features of the mind. However, they are not default features of the heart, which is why the heart is desperately wicked. Alas, it has no conscience and it has no perspective. And yet, your heart needs both. Ergo, the Ruach provides your heart with a moral compass, which over time provides your heart with perspective. Here is why this is so important. By giving your heart perspective, reverence increases your ability to navigate the way of escape. Now, again, if you recall, we analyzed the way of escape in our lessons on obedience and virtue. Notwithstanding, seeing as we hosted those lessons many months ago, I will provide at this time a definition in case you did not recall. By definition, the way of escape is the path you must follow to succeed your tests, trials, and spiritual warfare. On each occasion, Yahuwah will empower you to endure the situation until the appointed time, in which she brings the event to a conclusion, allowing you to escape. Now, we thoroughly analyze the way of escape in End Times 444, Reigning Over Contempt, Part 4, which was posted on April 2nd, 2025. In that podcast, we came to see how all the degrees of virtue, obedience, and faith are designed to help you to find and to navigate the way of escape. Trust me, there are more revelations in this podcast than any other that I recall. And they are all critical to your success and spiritual warfare. Ergo, I encourage you to listen to this podcast if you haven't already. To that end, this lesson and the next are designed to build off the revelations I shared in that podcast. To wit, I will show you how the fear of Elohim increases your ability to navigate the way of escape, so you succeed every test and trial that comes your way. My dear friends, you must believe me. It doesn't get any bigger than this. Remember, tests and trials are staples within the way of holiness. Spiritual warfare is the reality of all who travel this way. And the only path to victory lies within the way of escape. And the purpose of this podcast and the next is to show you how you can increase your prospects of navigating the way of escape. My dear friends, could there be anything more important for us to consider in such a time as this? I think not. So hold on to your hats, because we are going to cover a great deal of material in a short period of time. Let's get started. Faith and the way of escape. Now, before I speak directly to how the fear of Elohim increases your ability to navigate the way of escape, I want to first briefly recap the roles of faith, obedience, and virtue. This is crucial because the fear of Elohim is contingent to the operations of these 3 degrees. Ergo, you will never understand or appreciate the work of values, reverence, or worship apart from the work of virtue, obedience, and faith. And thus, we must review their roles using their primary illustrations. We should begin with hope, i.e., the fundamental degree of faith. If you recall, hope causes you to always look forward in your quest, focusing on the prospects and not the obstacles, to wit, the solution and not the problem. Not only this, but the primary illustration of hope is a mind barrier. This is crucial in finding the way of escape for the following reason. Consider this. The only way the enemy can defeat you in spiritual warfare is by distracting you. Ergo, he invests more time distracting you prior to the battle than he does in fighting the actual battle. We know this because the outcome of every battle is determined prior to the battle. Ergo, the enemy only has one strategy for the battle. To wit, he must distract you to the point where you are not prepared for the battle. Now, this is where hope comes onto the scene. Vis-a-vis, by giving you a mind barrier, hope insulates you from a large fraction of these distractions. But alas, she is only 1 degree of holiness, and thus she needs help. And Yahuwah is her help, and he gives her more power. Enter the power of trust. If you recall, trust causes you to have complete confidence in the Father to the point where you follow his will in every situation, specifically when you lack understanding. And trust me, at some point, you will lack understanding. And this is by design. Along these lines, the primary illustration of trust is a mental bridge at the center of your mind, a crucial feature in navigating the way of escape. Here is why. The way of escape takes on the nature of faith, which is symbolic of a forest. Ergo, there are stretches within the way of escape where you cannot see. Ergo, navigating these intervals will be difficult, for it is hard to follow any path that you don't understand, even if you are right where Yahuwah wants you to be. Now, as you would expect, this is where trust comes into play. Vis-a-vis, by giving you a mental bridge, trust allows you to see the path in your spiritual mind, although you cannot see it with your natural eyes. This speaks to the night vision you unlock via your mastery of faith, to wit, your ability to see through the darkness evolves from your willingness to trust Yahuwah in every situation, no matter how dark the way may be. And this, my friends, is why you will trade defiance for reliance, as you stand upon the promises Yahuwah has given you until each one comes to fruition. And you will stand, my friend, for the primary illustration of reliance is a rock, but not just any rock. Look here. Reliance is a rock of ages, which has the power to stand the test of time. For look, listen, it has been written. The rain came down, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. Ergo, I encourage you to never forget the roles of hope, trust, and reliance in navigating the way of escape, for they will give you power to stand. And remember, if your house is not established upon the 3 degrees of faith, it will vanish, for all other ground is sinking sand. Obedience and the way of escape. Now, this brings us to compliance, i.e., the fundamental degree of obedience. As you know, compliance causes you to fall in line with all the standards of holiness. And the primary illustration of compliance is an elastic suit. Now, to our great advantage, the elastic suit of compliance has many functions in our quest. And yet, as it pertains to the way of escape, one function stands out above the rest. Consider this. The elastic suit of compliance transfers the spiritual DNA of Yahushua Messiah into your soul. This allows you to walk in the path of righteousness wherein lies the way of escape. This, my friends, is just one of the many reasons why we are commanded to follow the steps of Yahushua Messiah. If you do, you will be led to conformance, the focal degree of obedience, which causes you to follow every rule of holiness. Along these lines, the primary illustration of conformance is a railing system, which we have analyzed thoroughly in prior podcasts. And yet, here is the thing you must always remember. As the way of escape does not exist at the outset of any test, trial, or spiritual battle, conformance is the interval where the way of escape begins to be made. We know this because the primary feature of the way of escape is security. And where there is no railing forged by conformance, there can be no security. Now, this brings us to transformation, the third and final degree of obedience. As you have learned, transformation causes you to change your mind by purging your thought dimension of anything contrary to the Father's will. In this order, transformation is a critical process that starts once and it never truly ends. Ergo, the primary illustration of transformation is a spiritual converter, a key feature which works in tandem with the elastic suit of compliance. Here is how. As you walk in compliance to the spiritual standard of Yahushua Messiah, the elastic suit of compliance transfers the spiritual DNA of Yahushua Messiah into your soul. And this transfer is governed by transformation, vis-a-vis the process in which you unlock and absorb the power of every degree of holiness, to wit, the spiritual DNA of Yahushua Messiah. Not only this, but as you unlock the power of every degree of holiness, you cast off the works of darkness by eliminating each corresponding degree of lawlessness. For every time you unlock a degree of holiness, you eliminate at least one degree of lawlessness. And this, my friends, is why transformation is the one degree of holiness that unlocks the rest. It is because transformation is the process that empowers you to reign over every degree of lawlessness by succeeding every trial and passing every test. Virtue and the way of escape. Now, this brings us to honesty, which causes you to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Likewise, the primary illustration of honesty is a conscience, i.e., a moral compass which leads you in the path of righteousness. This is crucial, for the path of righteousness is dynamic. It is formed from day to day. Ergo, you will struggle to navigate the path of righteousness without a moral compass to show you the way. Naturally, this brings us to righteousness, which causes you to always do what you know is right. Ergo, the primary illustration of righteousness is the legendary path of righteousness, for this is the manifestation of the kingdom of Elohim. Not only this, but the way of escape is found within the path of righteousness. Ergo, you cannot succeed in any test, trial, or spiritual battle if you are not committed to always doing what you know is right. Now, this brings us to purification, which cleanses your entire being of every manner of defilement, beginning with your heart. Ergo, the primary illustration of purification is a spiritual cleansing fluid. Along these lines, the spiritual cleansing fluid is only applied to those who are in the way of holiness. This speaks to a key revelation many folks consider, and so we shall consider it. Get this. The primary purpose of the spiritual cleansing fluid of purification is not to cleanse you from lawlessness after you commit an illicit act of sin. Quite the contrary, its primary purpose is to cleanse you from lawlessness before you ever transact any manner of sin. And thus, we conclude purification is not reactive in addressing sin. Quite the contrary, purification is proactive in preventing sin from reigning in your mortal body. For this is the only way you can continue in the path of righteousness. And this, my friends, is prime evidence that your heart is regulated, and fixed to do the Father's will. 4. A pure heart can only exist in a heart that has been regulated. Ergo, where there is no regulation, there can be no purity. Now, this concludes our summary of the roles of faith, obedience, and virtue in finding and navigating the way of escape. From now, we must continue our analysis of the fear of Elohim in this endeavor. And we will do so in the upcoming podcast. To wit, I will show you how values, reverence, and worship empower you to navigate the way of escape, such that you endure until the end. And so I'll see you in 2 days. Yahuwah bless you until then. Now, here is the final word. The greatest challenge we've seen to date is navigating the way of escape. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, everything we have learned from July 1st, 2024 until now is designed to empower you to find and to navigate the way of escape. Why? It's because the way of escape is the only path to victory in your tests, trials, and spiritual warfare. And if you are not victorious, my dear friends, if you do not overcome all things, whatever Yahuwah allows to come your way, then there is no way for you to be saved. Now look, listen, it has been written, to him who overcomes, I shall give to eat from the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of Elohim. My dear friends, look again and listen. The Ruach is revealing that there are 8 distinct promises given to those who overcome all things. And each of these promises is a manifestation of everlasting life. Here lies the inflection, my friends, vis-a-vis the only way you can overcome all things is by finding the way of escape and enduring every obstacle until you reach the end. Heretofore, I recommend, if you want to live forever, there is one thing you must do. Above everything else, here is the one thing you must do. Vis-a-vis, you must find the way of escape and you must follow the path until the very end. That is the time when Yahuwah delivers you. Selah. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on the word you have heard today. And as always, ask the Father to reveal the truth to you. For the children of Elohim live by conviction. And if he has not convicted you, or if you had not heard him concerning these matters, you should pray until you do. Today, I want you to meditate on the word I have shared. Specifically, I want you to meditate on the roles of virtue, obedience, and faith in allowing you to find and to navigate the way of escape. In doing so, I encourage you to listen to End Times 444, Reigning Over Contempt, Part 4, which was posted on April 2nd, 2025. Trust me, this is one of the more powerful podcasts we have posted in this series. Not only this, but it provides a great deal of background concerning the way of escape that will provide you with even greater enlightenment concerning the way. And trust me, knowing what is at stake, you could hardly have too much enlightenment concerning the way. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 493, Reigning Over Prejudice, Part 3. And the next podcast is entitled End Times 494, Reigning Over Prejudice, Part 4. I will post this podcast on Wednesday, June 25th, 2025. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim, continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end